Okay, so we're gonna make my famous chili. I made it the first time with the men's club at their men's club chili contest a number of years ago. First year, I think I'm not sure if I won or came in second place. One year I won with this recipe, um, and it's actually quite easy. Chili is not a very difficult um, food to make. It just has a number of ingredients, and you just have to prep everything. Now, I've prepped a number of things in advance to make it a little easier. Let's switch cameras here. So we've got, I'm going to go over some of the ingredients here. We've got some peppers, and I've roasted them, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I have 4 peppers here. I have 2 poblanos. These 2 here, move around. These are poblano peppers. Those are my chili peppers. They're poblanos are about like a medium heat. And I have a red pepper here, which is a sweet pepper, and I have a jalapeno, which is also medium heat. I'd say the poblanos are, depending upon the peppers, the poblanos are probably a little bit hotter than the jalapeno. We have a diced onion just here. I have some ground beef. We have some sausage, some kosher sausage back here. That's going to go in. A lot of spices that we'll talk about in a few minutes. Salt, pepper, etc. We have some beans, tomato sauce, tomato paste in the back here, which will all go in the end. We're going to be using an Instant Pot, which is not here on the counter yet. Once we have everything prepped, I'll bring the Instant Pot over. I can switch back over here. We're going to use an Instant Pot to do this, to do the chili. This recipe can be made on the stove, can be made in the Instant Pot, can be made in a slow cooker. The only difference between the 3 is that the Instant Pot is going to take about an hour to cook. The stove would take about 2 to 3 hours to cook. And the slow cooker, depending upon whether you have it on high or low. If you have a slow cooker on high, is like cooking it on the stove. There's no difference. The only benefit to the slow cooker is perhaps it's all, you can get those little plastic inserts for the slow cooker, make it a little easier to clean up. Or if you want to cook it over a longer period of time, the slow cooker on low, this recipe could take about 6 hours. And the only benefit to that is the flavor might be a little more intense when you cook it over a long period at low heat. So first we're going to deal with these peppers. Now I said I roasted them in advance. There's 2 ways you can roast peppers. The simplest is what I did. Is I took the peppers and I turned on my flame on my stove. You can't really do this if you have an electric stove. You can only do this with a gas stove, and you basically just char the outside of the pepper, which is what I did here. Or you could do it in the oven. You could slice the peppers in half, put some oil on top of them, put them in a dish, then put the oil on top of them, put them in an oven for about 450 degrees for about 15-20 minutes. They will char just like this, and then take them out and cool. Now, if you want to get the peel off really, really easy, after you put them in the oven, I've heard people say you can put them in a paper bag, and while it's in the paper bag, the peel will almost fall off on itself, which is true. But but it would be the same thing here. So I have these roasted peppers, and I can just basically, with my hands here, I mean, of course, they're cooled at this point. I would do this right after you finish with it. I could just peel off, I just rub the skin right off. And that's basically when you see on a menu or something, a roasted pepper, that's what it is. And it comes off that easy. Now I'm going to go and take all these peppers. I'm going to pause the recording. I'm going to take them all, and I'm going to do them in the sink so it's a little easier and quicker. And I will be right back from that. Okay, I'm back. So now we're gonna prepare our peppers. We're gonna cut them up. Now I didn't roast the jalapeno. You could, but it's really not necessary on a jalapeno. So we'll get to cutting that one up in just a moment. Let me get my knife. Now it's important to have a really nice, good, sharp knife. This is a French chef knife. I just sharpened it a few minutes ago, so it should be nice and ready to go. I didn't really sharpen. I honed it with a honing steel. That's one of those long. Bring it over. It's one of these. one of these guys. You just, go like this, back and forth, and you hone the edge, because what happens is on the knife, the edges get like wavy or, bent out a little shape from using it over the time. And by honing it like that, you basically straighten it all. And so it should cut really nicely from there. Now, one important thing when you're dealing with hot chili peppers is how hot you want to make it. So we're going to open up this pepper like that on the side, and you can see all of these seeds. Now, all of the heat, most of the heat, I should say, from this pepper is contained in these, these ribs here, these little lighter colored areas, and the seeds. So if you want to keep your chili really, really hot, you're going to keep all those seeds. You're going to keep all those seeds in. If you don't want your chili to be really, really hot, you are going to take them out. We're going to take most of them out. So I'm going to, because I don't want it that hot. Now, also, I should be using, I'm not, I should be using gloves, because now I have all this pepper juice, hot pepper juice on my hands. So if you do that, be really careful and don't touch your face with it, because it's going to be really, really hot and really stinging on your face. And it's not going to be pleasant. So I'm going to be very careful while I'm doing this. I can actually already taste the heat. Like I can feel it in my mouth already, a little bit. So I'm going to chop up this pepper. I'll put them all in the bowl. And once we have once I have all the peppers chopped up, I will bring the Instant Pot over to the counter, and we'll start getting everything ready. And just a basic little dice. It doesn't have to be tiny. You don't want them too big. Because a lot of this stuff is going to break down in the chili. Now, chili, we call it chili. Chili is a Spanish word for pepper. So all these things are chilies. We think of chilies as hot peppers, and so that's generally the definition in English. We don't call a sweet red pepper a chili, but it is really the same family, capsaicin family or something like that. And over the years, I mean, chilies or peppers were always spicy, and over the years, they've been engineered to be to get these much sweeter peppers, like the red peppers and the green peppers and the orange and the yellow peppers that we know that you like to put in your salad or something like that. So, okay, we'll get all that in there. We put in a red pepper. We want it to be the red pepper. Could put in the seeds and everything, but there's no real reason to do so. A little water in there too, so I get to shake that out. But the red pepper is sweet, so these seeds wouldn't add any heat to the recipe. Chop this up. And chili as a dish, what we call chili, is actually in Hispanics, I should say it's really a South American dish or Midwestern dish. It's really called chili con carne. It's really supposed to be, which is chilies, peppers, and beef. And in fact, in the original recipes for this, and you can still find many recipes like that, the ingredients are basically, aside from the seasoning that we'll get to in a few minutes, are just peppers and beef, and not even ground beef. It would be like pieces of beef cubes, small pieces of beef. Today, the common chilies that you see are made with ground beef and beans, and the beans were added at a later time, basically to kind of bulk up the chili because the beef would be expensive. So you just add the beans to it. We're going to use some beans. I have 2 cans of beans behind me. I have a can of black beans and a can of white kidney beans, or cannellini beans. They're also called. You can use red kidney beans. You could use chickpeas, garbanzo beans, I guess, if you really wanted to. but I'm using the white beans and the black beans because that's what I have on hand. And that's what we're getting. Okay, so get my jalapeno in there. Now I'm going to pause my video for a moment after I get all these peppers in the bowl, so I can go wash my hands a bit and try to get as much of this pepper off of my hands. And then I will come right back and we'll continue with the garlic. So over here, I didn't mention the garlic before. I got 6 or 7 cloves of garlic, which we'll do in a minute. And then we'll start cooking in the pot. Okay, so we're going to deal with these garlic. So I'm going to give you a little fun way to peel garlic. It doesn't work 100% of the time. I'm going to put the garlic in a bowl here. And take another bowl on top like this and hold it together with my hands. And then I'm going to make a lot of racket by shaking it up. If it worked, we'll see in a moment, garlic will have miraculously healed itself. So and it seems to have worked for most of them. 2, 3, 4, 5, and this one almost fully came off. 6, 7. So I have 7 pieces of garlic, and they all peeled very nicely. In the immortal words of Hannibal Smith, I love it when a plan comes together. So we could chop these with a knife. I'm going to just do it a little quicker. I'm going to use one of these garlic presses so we can get this quickly. Put a couple pieces of garlic in it and squeeze them through. Another thing that you could do with garlic that I like to do often is I use a microplane and I grate it, especially when I want things like in sauces and dressings, because that will get the garlic very, very small. And allow it to really mix in well with whatever it is that I'm cooking. And you really get that flavor of the garlic in what you're doing when you grate it up like that. So you get all the rest of this garlic in the pan. Scrape it off the front. Not the pan, the bowl. Okay. Okay. So I have pretty much all my vegetables together. It's not, like I said, it's very easy. Peppers, garlic, onions in terms of the vegetables. And then you, of course, have the beans and then the meat and everything. So we're going to get the Instant Pot up here in a moment, and I'll teach you how to use it as well. And we'll get everything together. Okay, I'm back. So I got my Instant Pot, which I'm going to put on the camera in just a moment, which is heated up. It's pretty hot. And I'm going to put a little oil in the pot to start, and then we're going to saute our vegetables first. So let me show you the Instant Pot. So you can see the Instant Pot from the top. I guess I should kind of try to show you the front of it. If you've never seen an Instant Pot, I know it looks backwards because of the camera, so I apologize. But we've got all these different buttons and everything, and it's got a timer on. I put it on to this saute setting because I want to kind of saute up all my vegetables and everything first, and I want to brown the meat. So automatically puts 30 minutes on the clock, and so it's been 6 minutes heating up. And then there are all these different settings. So there's like a setting in here for beans and chili, but we're not going to really use that setting. I've never used any of these other buttons really. Every recipe that I've ever found on the internet done with in the Instant Pot has had me use the manual settings on the Instant Pot. And so we're going to use it on the manual with high heat and a particular amount of time, which we'll get to in a few minutes. So okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, let's switch back over to my Instant Pot. I'm going to put in a little bit of oil. I'm using some olive oil here. I'd say it's about a tablespoon, maybe a tiny bit more. And put that over there. And then I'm going to put all of my vegetables in now. The bowl I'm using here is a parv bowl. Anybody that sees this that's not Jewish, that means it's neither meat nor dairy. So I'm using a neither meat nor dairy spatula to get it out of here into here. But the Instant Pot itself, or at least my Instant Pot, is a meat Instant Pot. I only use it for meat things. So once I do this, I will get my spatula. Use that. Let me put this out of the way. Sink. Okay, so now I've got all the vegetables. You can see them in there. Make them nice. So we're going to saute this till I gotta get the onions in too. Also a parv bowl, but I can just use my hand for that. We're going to saute all this until the onions are kind of turning translucent. Now this Instant Pot is not Instant Pot brand; it's Insignia brand, which is the Best Buy brand. The insert is a non-stick surface. The Instant Pot brand has a stainless steel interior. We just got a good deal on this a couple years ago. And also saute, you'll see sometimes, you turn it, the bowl moves a lot. And that's like a little bit of a sort of a hiccup. I can't use my finger to hold it in place because it's hot. So I just kind of deal with that. Let that saute down, and we're gonna pause the video for a few minutes while this all sautes down. The magic of videos. So we can get that sauteed down. We're going to get, after this is sauteed, we're going to add the garlic and saute for about a minute. I don't put the garlic in. A lot of recipes will have to put the garlic in with the vegetables or even before the vegetables. Putting the garlic in before the vegetables, the idea is you want to get the oil, sort of infused with the garlic flavor. To me, that's not like a big deal because you're going to get plenty of garlic flavor. And the garlic's going to burn if I put it in right at the beginning. The same thing if I were using ginger in an Asian recipe. So I put the garlic in last and let it cook for a minute because it really only needs a minute. The garlic doesn't really need to be cooked at all. You can eat garlic raw, except it's got that real bite to it. When you cook the garlic in the oil for a minute, not even, sometimes even less than that, it immediately removes that bite of the garlic, and that's where you get that really great garlic taste. And so that's what we will do in a moment. So I'm going to let this go for about, like I said, in this Instant Pot here, probably take about 10 minutes for it to get to the right place. And so I will be back in about 10 minutes. Okay, we're back. I am about ready with my vegetables. I'm going to put in that garlic, so I did what I said I wouldn't do. I think I have the garlic in that bowl already. I'm sure some of you who are watching the video probably realize that. So the garlic went in with the peppers. I've been very good about moving everything around a lot, so the garlic didn't burn or anything like that. So we're ready right now to get the next ingredient, which is the beef. So I'm going to use a pound of ground beef that we got from the store. So here's a pound of ground beef. I'm just going to plop it right in there. And now we want to break that up. Now I have this really great tool. My wife having been in the past a pampered chef consultant, as many of you know, we bought this great tool from Pampered Chef. You don't have to be a Pampered Chef consultant to get it. You can get one yourself. I forget what it's called. What's this thing called? The one to chop up the meat when I cook with it. Mix and chop. Called a mix and chop. There it is. And you basically just chop the meat with it. And you use it to mix it up as well. Really, really great tool for chopping this stuff up in here. I even have one for dairy. Obviously, I don't chop meat with it, but there are all kinds of other things that I'll chop up that in the saute pan when we're with dairy. You can't chop through vegetables with it. It makes really easy chopping of meat. So I'm done. Otherwise, you'd have to, use the spatula, the nylon scraper here that I have, or a spatula, or a spoon to kind of try to break it up. And it takes a bit of work, but that one went pretty quickly. Okay, so now we want to brown this meat. This will take only a few minutes. Let that go. So while this is browning, we can work on, let that go there. We can work on the spices. So we've got a lot of spices that are going into this. And let me see if I can turn the camera here a bit, so you can maybe see the spices I have. Okay, on my little bowl here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to use is we're going to use some chili powder. You can buy prepared chili powder. You can make your own chili powder by drying any kind of chilies you want and just crushing it up. But I have this chili powder here, spoons. So we're going to use a whole tablespoon of chili powder in this recipe. So let's get that here. Now this recipe is actually half of what I used to make for the men's club. So there's my tablespoon. So I made it half, one, because the Instant Pot's not going to have the whole thing, and two, because we're going to be eating this and I don't need a boatload of chili. So, okay, we're going to do a teaspoon of onion powder and a teaspoon of garlic powder. So I have this right here's my onion powder. And my garlic powder. I have about a teaspoon left there. Okay. Okay, teaspoon of onion powder, teaspoon of garlic powder, got my tablespoon of chili, teaspoon of paprika. I forgot to put the paprika in. Now I forget it out. I forgot to put it out. So I'm going to use. I have all kinds of paprikas. I'm going to use a smoked paprika. It'll taste really nice. So I want a teaspoon of this smoked paprika. There. Beautiful. Okay. Then I'm going to teaspoon of cumin. Now cumin is extremely important in chilies. I'm going to give my meat a little stir. That's just about ready to get everything else in. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to actually turn off the pot. Okay, so cumin is extremely important in chilies, and cumin, a teaspoon in there already, so I'm just going to knock the rest of that in there. We grind our own cumin, so I don't usually have a lot of it at a time. I buy cumin bulk online, and then we just put it in a spice grinder, and we grind up our own cumin for that. That way it's very, very fresh. Okay, so we want some ground coriander. Coriander, of course, is the seeds of the cilantro plant, that we call it cilantro. So I'm going to get a teaspoon of that. Okay. A teaspoon of cayenne. Now, if you want to, and we've got plenty of pepper in here, this is going to give it a little more heat. You can regulate your heat a tiny bit in this chili recipe. I'm using more or less cayenne. I'm going to actually use a little less than a teaspoon because I don't know how hot those peppers were that I put in. That's one thing you don't know what you're going to get when you do this unless you taste the peppers beforehand. You don't know how hot it's going to be because you don't know. Some poblanos can be really hot, some can be more mild. The same thing with the jalapenos. So I put in a little less than a teaspoon of cayenne. Okay, we're going to put about a teaspoon of kosher salt in here. Just can't do anything without some salt. And about a teaspoon of black pepper. So I have learned, this is my pepper grinder here, I have learned that 30 turns is about a teaspoon. We'll do that now. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 29, 30. Gets a little extra. You can grind them in advance and then measure out a teaspoon if you want, which is how I figured out how much that is. So, or you can keep some ground, but pepper is best if it's freshly ground. So I'm gonna, this is my spice blend. I'm gonna give a little mix. Oops, something out of my hand there. Okay. You would probably give it a good smell. And you can smell all those spices coming together, and it's really, 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 really amazing. And in fact, when I put these spices in the pot in a moment, the spices are going to come straight up at me. Oh, I forgot one ingredient, and I should turn the saute back on while I do this, is the sausage. So the full recipe called for a whole package of sausage, but we're going to use half of the package, obviously, so I'm doing half the recipe. I have this A&H sweet Italian sausage. You could use any kind of sausage. I like to put the sweet sausage in, mostly because the recipe is pretty spicy as it is, and so I like to add the other. Now, some sausages you can crumble up. These kosher sausages are more like hot dog kind of form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually slice it in my, move the cutting board over here so you can see. Okay, I'm going to slice it in half like that, and slice it in half again like that, and then just dice them up. Now, I don't need to really saute them long in there because these sausages are 100% cooked already. You can eat them, unheated. I'm not cooking them anymore. I'm just going to drop those in there. So here we go. Okay. Let's go there. Okay. Give it a stir. Get that all mixed in. Okay. So now I'm gonna put my spices in. Plop that right in. Back onto the pot. All my spices in. There we go. Okay. Mix it up now. Almost immediately, I can smell that the spices. It's like takes like 5 seconds, and the smells are there. It smells wonderful. So okay, we do that now. Now we're going to add basically everything else into here. So, and these are stuff. So obviously we need to open them up. I still have it on the saute, which is fine because the tomato paste that's going to go in would be nice to get it a little beforehand. So, all right, let's get this. This is just an 8-ounce can of tomato sauce. We don't need a lot because remember the meats and the vegetables have plenty of liquid that they're giving off right now. And you're going to have plenty of liquid in here. At the end, you don't want too much. You want some liquid for the chili. So there's a can. What is this? A 6-ounce can of tomato paste. And I find that to get the tomato paste nice and easy out of the can, I open the top and the bottom, and then I give it a good shake, and it just pops right out. Look at that. There. Let's mix that in. Okay. I get a wonderful tomato smell with chili. Okay, next, I'm going to put my beans in. Now, the beans need to be rinsed and drained, so I should have prepared that in advance. I did not. So I'm going to pause and go do that. Okay, so first we have our can of black beans, which have been rinsed. Okay, and my white kidney beans or cannellini beans in there. That all in. Now, last ingredient is there's two more ingredients. Is 3/4 cup of chicken stock. Well, I don't have any chicken stock today because you can see now it's very, very thick. So we need to thin it out a little bit. We're going to thin it out with two things: chicken stock, which I'm actually just going to use some water, and the other sort of secret ingredient is. Switch the camera here. We'll talk about that. Whoops. Here we go. Is bottle of beer. So I'm using Guinness because I like very heavy stout or porter or whatever you want to call these heavy beers. You can use a lager, you can use an IPA, you can use anything you like. The chili will just have a slightly different taste. With the stout, we're going to have a deeper taste from it. So I'm going to get about half a cup of water because I think that I have enough liquid. I don't need a full 3/4 cup in. Get my bottle opener here. That, and it goes a whole bottle of beer. Actually, the full recipe calls for a whole bottle of beer. So I'm gonna check the consistency here before I choose to fill it up with the entire bottle. There we go. I think that's pretty perfect. So although this bottle of beer, I say I put, it's hard with Guinness. It's dark bottles. It's hard to say. I'd say I put about 3/4 of the bottle in. It wasn't in the fridge, but it's pretty cold out, so it was in a part of the house that's not heated, so it tastes pretty good. So now I got everything in there. I'm gonna put the cancel on here again with this. Now all you gotta do is put the lid on and get this going. So now the lid's over here. Okay, so let me tell you about pressure cooking a little bit. Because most of the other videos I'm sure are using pots and things like that rather than a pressure cooker. So I have everything in there now with the pressure cooker. So the Instant Pot is a pressure cooker, and the purpose of cooking under pressure, what happens is as the pressure increases, the amount of time it takes for food to cook lessens. Essentially, the higher the pressure, the less amount of time it would take water to boil. Or anything to heat up. So you can do something that would take a couple of hours to cook on the stove is only going to take, in this case, you do this on the stove for 2 to 3 hours. 2 is probably sufficient. 3 would give it a little deeper taste. 20 minutes in the Instant Pot is going to suffice for that, 20 to 25 minutes. And it's going to do the exact same thing as a couple hours on the stove. So with the Instant Pot, basically you have to put the cover on, and we're going to set on the front of the Instant Pot. Like I said, I use the manual setting. I'm going to push manual. I'm going to make sure it's listed on high, which is correct. And then I'm going to change right here. It says 30. I'm going to drop it down to, make it 23 minutes. We're going to drop it down to 23 minutes, and then I'm going to press start over here. So just before I do that, there's something to note that every pressure cooker and all these different Instant Pots, it started on its own, but that's okay, so I don't have to push the start button, have these valves. So there's 2 valves here that you see. This valve has 2 settings here and here. The back setting here is what's called sealing, and the front setting is called venting. You really can't read them because it's backwards because of the camera, but that's what they are. So sealing means I put it in this thing, it's totally sealed. This valve with this little thing here is right now down in the down position, and it is venting it now. What happens is as the liquid builds up pressure, builds up steam, that steam is going to basically force up, and it's going to force this valve and push it up. And once that pushes up, it seals this 100%, and then the and then the system will start, the machine will start building up the pressure in order to be able to cook it at pressure. And so right now, the front of the unit, let me switch back again. The front of the unit is basically getting ready for cooking. You see the little thing is spinning around. Different Instant Pots, they have different things, but that's spinning around. The moment it hits pressure, when that valve pops up in the top and there's no steam coming out anymore, this will turn to, I put it on for 24 or 23. This will switch to that number and it will count down. Then once it's done, and I'll come back to it at that time, and I'll come back to the video at that time. Once it's done, we can choose to either release the pressure immediately, which you can do, but for the chili recipe, we're going to keep it closed, and as it cools down, the steam will go down, the pressure will go down, and then you'll be able to open the top. So once it's up to full pressure, the top will lock. I wouldn't be able to open it up at all because it would be quite dangerous to do so. This is better than those old pressure cookers you had on the stove because everything is being done for you. The mechanism determines when it's safe to open, everything like that. So we're going to do what we call a natural pressure release. We're going to let the thing come down to pressure, let it cool off slightly on its own, let the pressure come down. That could take anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes for fully to come down. So when I said that it takes about an hour earlier, that's where I was getting my time from. It's like 20 minutes of actual cook time, 10 minutes to come up to pressure. It'll take about 10 to 12 minutes to come up to pressure. And then it's going to take about another 20 minutes to come down from pressure. And after 20 minutes or so, if it hasn't fully depressurized, I'll just let the rest of the pressure out manually by turning that valve on the top to the venting, and it'll just vent out the rest of the steam. So that's it for now. I will come back when the chili is done to show you what it looks like. Unfortunately, because, or actually, maybe I'll be able to. We'll see. I normally wouldn't eat any at that point because I don't want to be flashig. For any non-Jews that might see this video, after meat, we wait 3 hours before we eat any dairy product. So I have to determine at that point whether I want to eat any dairy afterward. I know I'm going to be eating dairy in a few minutes, but we don't have to wait between eating dairy and then eating meat. So we'll see. Maybe I'll be able to taste some at the end. Or if not, maybe I'll figure some other way to taste some before we end the video. So I will be back in about a half hour or so. Okay, so the Instant Pot is now finished, and it's been about just about 20 minutes. I'm gonna switch the camera here. So, well, it's backwards, but you'll see it says 19 minutes because it sort of keeps it warm. This thing says keep warm over there. And as it keeps it warm, but it's not cooking, so the temperature is coming down. So that it's let's get that back up there, right? Yeah, it's good enough. So, because we're gonna see what happens when this thing opens up. So, as I said, the steam closes these vents, which you'll see, and I'll switch back in a moment. You'll see it. Pressure builds up inside. Cooking time decreases significantly. And now there's still pressure in there. We've let it cool down a little bit, so the pressure's gone down a little bit. You could do a full natural release of the pressure. It would probably take between 30 and 45 minutes before it came fully down to, before it fully lost the pressure for you to be able to open the top by itself. But as you can see, I can't turn this top. It's totally locked. And if I look at the things here, I can see, move the camera a little bit. Okay, here we go. So here's my pressure valve, my release valve, and you see now this is in the up position. Earlier, it was down. Now it's in the up position. But if I were to push down slightly on that valve, you'll hear it'll start to release pressure. So, but what you can do is you can turn this. Now I am going to sort of turn my unit a little bit because when the pressure comes out, it's going to come out of here, go straight up, and it's going to hit my cabinets, and I just don't really want it to hit my cabinets. So what I can do also is I have this dirty rag here that I'm just going to put near the top. It's not that dirty, actually. It's a clean rag. And I'm going to put it over it to sort of kind of catch the steam because it can be significant. So we're just going to, actually, it's not. So it came down more than I thought it would. So I guess it would take about 30 minutes for it to fully release all the pressure. Because when it's really full of pressure, the steam like shoots up very, very high. But you could even in the video, you can see the steam coming out right now. So, okay, and now we're going to turn it back around because I don't need to worry about the steam anymore. And now the thing just dropped down. It's off the camera. But I don't know if you maybe heard the click, but it dropped back down, which means it's now safe to open up. I'm going to open it up. And now we're still bubbling. I'll go put this down over here. We are still bubbling nicely in there because it is still keeping it hot. Because and there's our chili, and it's a nice amount of liquid. I probably could have even maybe skipped the water totally, and it would have been sufficient in terms of the liquid. So if you end up with too much liquid like this, a little bit extra, there's a couple things you could do. One, which is what I'm going to do, is I'm just going to leave it on this keep warm setting with the top off. Let some of the water evaporate out as it's doing right now. And I'll probably give it 15, 20 minutes, maybe maximum. And then it will thicken up significantly during that time. If you don't have that kind of time and you did this to time it right when you want to finish it right when you want to eat, but you don't want it this liquid, well, I mean, you could just use a slotted spoon or something and try to, get some of the liquid out. You could just leave it in because it's really fine. There's no reason you can't have all that liquid. And in fact, if you're eating it with any kind of a bread or cornbread or anything, you might want all that liquid to sop up into the bread. Put this together with a nice crusty loaf. That would be pretty good. But if you really want to thicken it up a little bit, just take a tablespoon of cornstarch and a couple tablespoons of water, maybe. Mix that together, pour it in, mix it up as it's still on the hot setting, and it will thicken it up pretty quick. It may take more than 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, but I wouldn't put more than that in there to thicken it up. And that's all you need to do. And so we're going to, let's get a bowl. You don't want to make something and then not give it a taste. So as I said earlier, I had to decide whether I wanted to eat something fleischig and something meat after I was getting any sausage. Yeah, I got some sausage in there. But I'm not going to eat anything dairy at this point. So let's take a taste here. It's going to be very hot as it comes straight out. But let's see. So the flavors are all together perfectly, so that's fine. The heat's there. It's not very overly hot. If you really like it, if you like it really hot, you could have added another pepper at the beginning, or a little bit more cayenne. I think it's about perfect. It's hot enough that I feel the heat, but I don't feel like I need to get a piece of bread or something to get rid of that heat in my mouth. Everything is cooked perfectly. If I had some cornbread or something with it right now, it would be perfect. I'm going to probably take this, cool it off. We're going to freeze it and have it at the Super Bowl. And then I will make some cornbread or some crusty bread tea with it. So I hope you enjoyed my video. I hope you make my chili and enjoy my chili because it's really good. It really is good. And if you have any questions, most of you know how to get in touch with me, and or you can put comments. This should be on YouTube, so you'll be able to put comments below. Everybody likes to do that on YouTube, put the comments below, and I'll answer any questions you might have. And I have only this and my challah recipe are in there. I would love to be able to do more recipes and more cooking. It takes a lot of time to do these things, so I don't know that I'm going to be able to do them that often, but we will try to get some others in here. Thanks very much.